All right, everybody, welcome back to the ATB NFL Live Show. And joining me today is Zach. No Tony right now. We're not sure where he's at right now. Hopefully
He might come in. We don't know.
Yeah, hopefully he sees that we're live and whatever he's doing, he can chill for a minute and come hang out. But if nothing else, we are talking a lot of Dolphin stuff today. That's kind of the biggest news recently is obviously contract, but not for the one that maybe people were expecting to see.
Yes.
We'll get into that, but a contract with the Dolphins. So Zach would be the person we want to talk about with that, of course, being a Dolphins fan. But before we get into any of the big news with the Dolphins, just want to let you guys know that we're obviously trying to get more into a schedule. We'll try to do the show every week if we can. Today, obviously, on a Sunday. Normally, you see us on Saturdays. Just be on the lookout. If you like watching the show, if you see it come up, just
we'll be here.
Join us. Yeah, we will try to be here every week. But moving on. So, of course, the biggest news right now in the NFL, especially in this time period where kind of nothing is happening other than OTAs. And I don't know about you, Zach. I don't really want to talk about OTA storylines. Everyone else does it. I just don't care.
What about everybody's favorite, the schedule release? Like
the schedule release, yeah, but
is it really? So I've been noticing this theme across a lot of like podcasts and a lot of sports. Is it really weird that like football is really just trying to force itself the entire year? Like, do we really need a schedule drop for the NFL? Like,
here's the other thing I'll say is that the NFL, more than any other sport, especially American sport, it is a year-round thing because, again, they've made this concerted effort to do so, and it makes sense from a marketing standpoint.
Force it.
They do force it, but hey, if people pay attention to it, why not do stuff every time you get? That's kind of what it comes down to. Like, why do you think the NFL draft is such a huge production? Because other leagues have that, but like not the other leagues don't get the same amount of like coverage for their drafts as the NFL does because the NFL makes it a huge thing. They make a concerted effort to make every aspect of the calendar about them if they can, and they've done so very successfully. I will say that. So to that,
I would say some other sports have their quirks, like the NBA with the draft lottery, like when they do the actual like that is wild. That gets so much like coverage. But like I do agree with what you're saying about the NFL draft specifically is like the MLB and NHL draft have basically zero media coverage whatsoever because they're extremely long.
Well, they're very long. Like you don't see those guys typically for 3, 4, 5 years, so it's much harder to make it a big deal. I will say that's the
NBA gets a lot of attention in like the first, let's say like. If it's a really, really good year, they'll probably like the first day of the draft, the first round, they'll have like really, really a lot. But normally it's like the first like 15 picks, unless you're waiting for your team to pick. Yeah. Somehow the NFL has people that are just vice gripped for all 3 days.
Hey, all 7 rounds. I am one of those.
I know.
I am a draft guy. So that's why, but
I mean, even them getting the views and the attention on day 2, I watch day 2. And that's rare for a lot. But like the NFL's power to just be a staying force, because like when it's off season for the NHL or the MLB, even the NBA to some extent, depending on how poppin' the free agency is.
Yeah.
But like
not super popular. Yeah.
It's just kind of like everybody's waiting for it. But the NFL, it's all talk all year. Yeah, almost to the point that I feel like college sports is always like an all year thing because of like just the way that recruiting works.
You're right too with college sports too, because like also like if you're a fan of college sports in general, there's always something happening. Like especially if you're a fan of your college or your like whether it's the college you went to or just a college you like. Like for me, Wisconsin, I care mostly about the football program, like the basketball program. We've been pretty good at basketball for a long time too, but it's like I know what's going on a lot throughout the year because I'm trying to know where
Virginia. When I was there, it wasn't as good, but like especially the past couple of years, like obviously football is coming back into being on the forefront at Virginia Tech, but the basketball teams have been very productive. The baseball and softball teams have turned it on. So it's been like a lot more of like. People have been so upset at Virginia Tech because they're like, oh, we're not putting enough focus on football. But it's like, yeah, that's cool. But what about all these other teams that are doing all this stuff too? Like if you're a fan of the school, if you're a fan of football, I guess, yeah, it sucks to suck right now. But if you're a fan of the school, then you should still be happy because there's still a lot of success going on.
You're definitely still doing it right athletically. But I mean, football is we know how huge football is. It's why we do this. It's why we have all the other stuff that we do.
Well,
That's what it comes down to. But
let me tell you, this Virginia Tech fan is not his excitement for NCAA 25 has gone down quite a bit because they did not get the licensing to have the Enter Sandman stadium entrance.
Yeah, I mean, apparently it's so much money. It's
of
just
course, it's
stupid
Metallica.
amount of money.
It's Metallica.
Yeah. So I get it. I do get it. It
oh,
sucks.
come on. It's EA. They own Madden. They have enough money.
Listen, enough money, yes. Enough money to dedicate towards that where they
I mean, it's the comeback game. It's the comeback game for this series. If there was anything to shell it out for and you were going to make like a really big splash, be like, yo, we got it for this game.
We got Enter Sandman, yeah.
It's the number one college football entry, depending on who you're talking to, because I know it's a hotly debated topic, but it's definitely up there. But like just for this one game, like we can't promise it for the future, but like you would have had people. So I would have bought a PS5 for that. Totally would have.
That's true. Like I will say that, but I will say like taking it away then if you don't do it after this year might have been worse overall for them than just not getting it at all. You know, because like then people are like, okay, well that was weird. Like it was cheap to just do it 1 year, and it's like, well, we can't afford it every year.
Oh yeah, it's expensive.
That would be funny. That would be funny.
Yeah.
If they did that. No, NCAA 25 is definitely something that I'm personally excited about because I do have a PS5, Zach. Unfortunately, I know that no next current gen. Although at this point, shouldn't it be current gen for like PS5? I know it's weird like that. I know the topic.
I made this point in the group chat. The only reason I can think that it's not going to be current gen is unlike 2K, unlike Madden, unlike NHL, unlike MLB, all of those games have been on previous consoles before. Yes. Mm-hmm. So they still have all the engines to run that. Yes. If they're
that's truly just sure. Yeah,
and if you are fooling yourself at this point after watching that gameplay trailer, if you think this is a Madden reskin, it's not. It's absolutely not. They've knocked this out of the park.
I think so far. I'm very skeptical with EA. You know that. I think we've talked about it.
Everybody has to be.
Yeah, Matt and I are not friends. I don't play the game. I play it like as a GM. But I don't play the physical game. Like I don't like to do that very much. But
there is no sports game I hate more than Madden, and I think this is the perfect place to tell this story because people will understand what this means.
Gotcha.
And I try to tell this to other people like at work and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So I went to college from 2014 and graduated in December of 2018. Mm-hmm. So that's our time frame of when we're buying Maddens. Like my roommates were buying Madden new.
Not great.
And well, not necessarily that. It's just you need to think about the teams at that point because it's become clear. So I never played. They had a tally. I was playing 2K against them. I was still losing. We had tallies in the living room on a board of like how many times you won, how many times you lost. And I never played Madden because I was like, I hate Madden. I don't like playing Madden. Blah 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 blah. And my best friend at college at the time, he was like, "Hey, you can pick whatever team you want. I will be the Browns, and we'll face off, and I'll give you every opportunity." So keep in mind, this is like 2014 to 2018. So we're talking like the 1-15, 0-16 Browns.
Yes,
I chose in his prime, Drew Brees and the Saints. Like they were humming at that point. How the hell did I throw 7 interceptions in the first half?
Yeah, the game is not exactly. See, and I don't want to get too much in this because this is NFL talk technically because Madden NFL, but my biggest issue with Madden ultimately is that it's not what it is not what it's said to be, right? It's supposed to be the simulation NFL game, right? They have the license specifically for the simulation NFL game, and they decided to not make it remotely close to football for the most part, especially if you're playing against like people who play it professionally or people who play it a lot. Like you get to a point where you're not really playing the sport anymore. You're kind of just playing an arcade game, which if Madden came out and said, hey, we are an arcade game, other people can make a simulation game if they want, 2K, whoever, go for it. That Madden is an arcade game. I would think Madden's one of the best arcade football games of all time because it is like crazy. It's wild and you can do crazy stuff. And that would be fun. It's the fact that it's not that is why I don't like Madden. Like that's kind of what it all comes down to. It's how they market their product is what it comes down to for me. So I do agree with you. Like throwing 8 picks or 7 picks in the first half, I don't care if you've never picked up a controller before. That shouldn't be very easy.
That shouldn't be possible.
Like,
It's just, especially when your opponent is the 0-16, 1-15,
and you know
Browns,
how football works. You're not like completely like it's not like you don't know how to like where to throw a football. Like, so I get you. It's tough, but that's enough video game talk. But
that's my only reasoning between where like if they're truly using like all these next gen like servers and stuff, like look, we have to be honest with ourselves. The PS4 came out a long time ago.
It did.
The PS5 came out in 2020. The fact that they haven't moved to it being a more exclusive system is kind of mind-boggling at this point with how games have typically developed. So I understand the frustration, but I mean, it's about time for like I'm trying to get a PS5 at some point. Like it's probably on my horizon of something I'm asking for.
I actually got lucky before we finally move on to our actual conversations today. I got lucky and got a PS5 like very quickly when it came out. Like one happened to be at my Best Buy in my town, and I was able to. I didn't have to like pay scalper prices, not to do any of that. Just picked it up. It was nice. Yeah. So I didn't get the disc version because I knew I wasn't going to care about that because I barely bought games at that point anyway. So
that's the thing. I want the disc version.
I would have liked it too, but I saved a lot of money by not getting the disc version, and also I would have had to wait to get it. So I will say that. But yeah, definitely worth it if you want to play NCAA 25. I think that is definitely a game that, so far at least, amazingly, despite it being produced by EA, might be worth getting a new console for.
Yeah, if it comes out that Skate 4 is PS5 and Xbox Series X exclusive, then I will be getting a PS5 because I've been waiting desperately for that game.
Man, Skate 3, how old is Skate 3 now?
I will do a quick search, but it's old.
I thought so, right? Like
Skate 3 came out in 2010.
That's what I thought. I was like, it's got to be a PS3 era game, right? Like I thought so.
There is no official release date, but they are still working on Skate 4, and it's looking like a Q3 or Q4 launch this year.
That's cool. Good to know.
So, but I've been holding off so long for another Skate game because it's been a long time, and like the Tony Hawk games are like all right, but it's not what I want at all. It's different.
Yeah, not the same thing. But yeah, so let's get into our actual topics today, Zach.
Yes.
I know we had a bit of a tangent to start. That's what happens when you have just two of us. Tony's not here to wrangle us in at all. Well, honestly, sometimes he probably makes it worse. It depends on the day. Anyway, we're going to start talking about Jalen Waddle and his 3-year, $84.75 million extension.
As my tag said, that's a Waddle money.
That's a lot of money. Here's ultimately with Waddle, and we talked a little bit pre-show. What he can be for this offense and what he has been for this offense at times is certainly worth a contract like this in this receiver market. I think the issue is you are now, and I was going to pull it up here, and I can here in a second. You're now paying, and I know his deal is a little weird. It's like now his cap hits are actually higher even than the average with Hill. You're now paying two guys top 4 receiver money on a per year basis, right? Like on an average per year basis. And it's tough, right? Because you have already had to lose players like Christian Wilkins, right? Like guys like contributors like Andrew Van Ginkel. Like you've had to lose guys that you might have been able to pay if you weren't committing this much money to the receiver room. However, we've seen what this offense looks like whenever one or both of those guys aren't out there. It's not nearly the same. And obviously, when you have talents like this, it's not going to be the same. But I think for an offense that's so predicated on the timing of things, the explosive plays, the run after catch ability of these guys, the ability just to threaten deep and get stuff open underneath, it is just kind of required for an offense like this to work at the high level that it's shown to be when Tua is healthy running it, right? Like that's ultimately what this is about and why he got paid.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing here is the one thing that you can look at it and be like, you can justify this as being the contract for Jalen Waddle is one, his dependability. He's missed 3 games in 3 years.
He's not had as much injury issues as people think that he has.
Which for his size and the way that he plays football, we've seen a lot of wide receivers who are better on the taller, smaller side that have the speed, who just can't really hold that sort of like that. They can't take the hits, can't do whatever. He's been able to play, so that's one thing. I think a cause for concern, though, when you talk about Jalen Waddle starting in this is, or not starting in this, but in this sort of thing is 76 million guaranteed for a guy who has had his fair share of the dropsies every now and then. And let's be fair, Tyreek Hill has as well. But he's shown so much more for the overall success of this offense, and the Tyreek Hill missing was a lot more of an effect than when Jalen Waddle was not there. Now, can Jalen Waddle be a solid wide receiver? 100%. And he has shown that he can do that. And he's done that even despite having Tyreek Hill in the same room as him. He's had 1,000 yards every season. But for both of them, they have to turn around when it comes to these moments where they are the ones that are looked on to make that play, to make that catch. They're getting top 4 receiver money, both of them. They have to be able to convert those plays and show that, hey, I'm worth this. You guys are investing so much money into our receiving core, and we want to show you guys that it's worth it. Yes, when it's 4th and 7 or 4th and 5, and I'm catching one on the line, it's not going to pop out of my hands. Like, I'm going to bring that down. At the end of the day, that's what they both have to be there to be able to do. And like, do people drop stuff? Absolutely. But you want to be able to be looked upon as some of the people like Larry Fitzgerald, who was known for having more more tackles than drops. I mean, like, you just have to know that that's some of the stuff that you have to be able to do. And I think the bigger thing is like that, obviously that's a gaudy number, but he's getting 76 million guaranteed. I think that's even more astounding when you talk about this contract, because like, yeah, you can get this this big number, but if the guaranteed number isn't that high,
it's close to a fully guaranteed contract.
Exactly. It's almost entirely guaranteed.
Very interesting. And I think a lot of people forget that with these contracts, like you said, is this number looks crazy. And it is a little crazy. Let's be honest about it. But usually when you see a deal like this, it's like, okay, well, 2/3 of it is guaranteed, or maybe even half of it's guaranteed. And
there's a lot of incentive-based stuff.
There is, And with Waddle, like, he's a young player who's been productive. There's reason to think like, okay, a guy like that probably can get a guaranteed amount that's close to like 60-70% of what the total contract is worth. This is closer to like 90%. Like, and that's a lot for a player that isn't a tackle, quarterback, like type of thing. As good as a receiver, as big as a receiver market's become, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too as part of this.
Yeah, because I do think that there's a specific reason for somebody coming up that they got this done.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But with the receiver market in general, so right now, and I checked this before we got on. I was going to bring it up on the screen, but it doesn't look great on the share. But right now, and this is just the per year average, right? So there's differences in guarantees and like length of contract, total contract, all that stuff. Right now, going into 2024, there are 20 wide receivers whose cap hit, or shouldn't say cap hit, but they're like they said, their average per year on their current contract is north of $20 million. So there's 20 receivers. If you were to do that, like obviously, so over half of the wide receiver ones, technically, if you spread them out across all the teams, are making north of $20 million.
And that means that the Dolphins have 2 of them.
Exactly. And there's a big, it's just you haven't seen this with receiver market.
Is there any other team with multiple?
I believe that there is. Let me double check here for you. I know the Eagles, Devontae and AJ, because they both got extensions. Okay. I believe they're the Bears as well with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen now.
Keenan Allen's making over $20 million a year.
He's making just over $20 million on his current.
Oh my Lord!
So that was obviously it was a total of $80 million. So I think it was a 4-year, $80 million extension. So and then the Bucks with Godwin and Evans as well.
Okay. I was wondering if Chris Godwin had dropped off enough to not be on that discussion anymore.
No, he's at $20 million exactly.
Okay, because Evans obviously like he. Have we ever had the Hall of Famer discussion with him?
I don't think so, but I think the answer
we'll save that for another day.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll save it then. But no, I think with him,
I think Tony would want to be a part of that.
That's true. Yeah, we'll let that sit. But I think in general, there's a few teams. It's not just the Dolphins. I will say no one has anything close except for the Eagles to 2 top 4 guys.
Yeah.
The Texans and like with Nico Collins now with his new deal, and trading for fundings. They both are over 20 million a year, but that's
okay.
again
Yeah,
a little
yeah,
different too because that's a
yeah.
trade factored in. But in general, like you look at this receiver market, and I people have talked about like, is it eventually because of the amount of great receivers that come through the draft every year, are teams eventually going to stop doing this with players that aren't truly like the Justin Jefferson tier, the even as low I would say is like the DJ Moore tier, where like they're clearly wide receiver ones for most teams. If you aren't one of those guys, are you going to continue to see guys make north of $20 million, or the percentage, like the general amount, like inflation involved as well, like over time, like close to that cap hit percentage that they're getting right now?
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. I think teams know how important it is to surround their quarterback with talent at the level that these guys have, even if it means maybe overpaying a little bit for it. And even in Jalen Waddle's case, like he's obviously been super productive and everything. So I'm not saying he's necessarily overpaid, but paying another receiver close to $30 million is just a lot of your cap, right? It's essentially, you put these two deals together with Tyreek and him, it's essentially a like top of the end, like top of the line quarterback contract. Like that's basically what you're paying those guys.
Well,
right?
I
Like
mean,
that's what it comes down to.
is that what they're talking about just doing instead of shoveling the money to Tua?
That's going to be our other conversation we're going to have today with after this receiver market conversation is, what does this kind of mean for their future? Because to me, it means one of two things, and we can kind of get into it now since we talked with the receivers a good bit. When/if Tua signs, what will his contract look like? Because to me, it seems like the Dolphins understand that the lifeblood of their offense truly is this receiver core with Waddle and Hill. And as well as Tua's played within this system, I think we all can, even no matter how you feel about Tua, I think we can all agree that like the reason this offense is as explosive as it is because of who he's throwing the ball to. Like his style of play, while it can be effective with a multitude of different types of wide receivers, it is exponentially more productive when you have guys that have the skill sets these two have. Like he is a rhythm thrower. He is an anticipatory thrower. He's not going to fire these missiles in between defenders down the field. Like he's not going to create chunk plays by himself. It's just not the type of thrower he is, right? And you can get away with that when you have this type of talent. You can create explosives still without needing to do that so much. With him, I think that if they want to pay him, they have to be very careful about how they set it up. Like can they afford to continue to pay these receivers and go get another one when Hill eventually is gone, right? Because Hill's not going to be playing forever. He is, I believe, over 30 now, right? If I'm not mistaken. Like he's not going to be the same player forever. I'm not saying he's going to drop off like this year or the year after even, but you're going to have to replace him at some point. And maybe the replacement is like Waddle's going to take over that top dog role and they're going to find somebody else to do what Waddle is doing, whatever that may be. But you have to be able to continue to put these types of players around Tua. And can you do that while also paying him top line quarterback money? I think that's kind of the question that might be happening inside the Dolphins organization right now.
Yeah. And we're saying, what does this contract look like? The decision to bring him back is going to be up to one person and one person alone. That's Mike McDaniel, because we're going to say that we're sitting here and the wide receivers are the lifeblood of the offense, but in reality, Mike McDaniel is the lifeblood of this entire team.
Well, yeah,
at the moment,
his ability to get those guys.
Well, not just called, but I have a very heavy feeling that he, compared to a lot of other coaches in the past in Miami, is having a much more positive effect on the roster building here.
Yeah.
Where in the past, he knows what he wants. He knows what he needs to run, what he needs to run.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where he needs to decide. Can he do this because let's be real, like the fact that they have Jalen Waddle is basically Tyreek Hill light, like the speed, the catch,
skill set wise, yes,
yeah. It's almost like looking at a spitting image. It's just he's a lot younger and a little bit like you can't recreate Tyreek Hill, but it's the closest thing you can find to it.
Yeah.
But that's where you point out that Tyreek Hill is just an absolute monster of a wide receiver for the skill set that he has. And can you put some other players if he decides to leave? Is it really just, is it contingent on Tyreek Hill, or is it contingent on him having those kind of players in his system. And like you're saying, if he's able to find and identify those people in the draft or around the league and trade for them and acquire them, put them on the team, and Tua is able to do what he does, because that's the thing that Tua has, is the anticipatory. That's what's fantastic for speed, is if you know somebody's going to get to a spot quicker than anybody else is going to get there, you put the ball when you know that they're going to be there. So I think that's why the Dolphins look so weird at times, is because it's just like we were talking about Madden. They're simulating everything in his mind. He's simulating the play. He knows where that person is supposed to be at what time. So he's going to put the ball at that time. If they're not there, I mean, yeah, he might have made a mistake by not reading it further, but that's the system they're running. That's why I was pounding the table for them to get some sort of running back that could just bust through the middle of the line and tackles and break tackles, because that's what they need right now if they want to go this route. So it's really going to be Mike McDaniel determining, do I want to sit here and keep going with this, or do maybe I want to take a step back and not pay all this money for the guy that's the anticipatory guy and get somebody who's really going to be more of I can run the offense. You don't have to worry about anything. If it comes down to it, I've got your back just as much you've got mine. Because, like, if I'm being honest, one of the big reasons I don't want him to get that big of a contract is I don't necessarily trust Tua to be the one to make that decision. I want everything to be going through Mike McDaniel's mouth. Like, I don't want it to be down to Tua being the one to be like, all right, I have to call this play here, because I don't necessarily feel like he has all of the skills to make the best call at every single time. So
yeah,
it gets to the point where, why are you paying a quarterback top of the line money when he's not like Tom Brady, like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees? Those are people that you're watching on the line. Aaron Rodgers, even still, like, you're watching them on the line running the offense. I don't really see Tua doing that. I see him going out there, getting the plays from McDaniel, relaying it, maybe doing a little bit of protection stuff, but like, it's not like some major, like, I'm audibling out of this. And the few times we've seen the audibles, they haven't gone well. So that's my concern, is like, sure, I can understand from Tua's side with the injuries and all this stuff. Yes, you want to ensure your future, get your money and get all this stuff. But there's so many things from the Miami Dolphins side of as a franchise to be like, no, I'm sorry, man, we can't do that. You've just given us so many reasons not to.
Yeah. And so I want to say this, because in the past, especially more so than now, I was not a big fan of Tua. I was not a big fan of him coming out. I didn't love the arm talent. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to really step up and kind of be a playmaker for an offense. And I think if you are going to be drafted inside the top 10 at quarterback, I think you have to be able to win. Not only, like, you have to be able to win from the pocket and from the offense. Like, that's just a prerequisite to play quarterback in the NFL. But if you can't give your team a chance consistently outside of those situations and kind of elevate your core around you, I don't know if I feel great about you being a top 10 pick. And that was ultimately my issue with Tua. I was confident he could be a good quarterback in the NFL because he has a skill set that works in a lot of modern offense, especially these spread, like, open up the field offenses. And there's really, I don't know if there's anybody better at specifically what Tua does as a quarterback in the NFL. The problem is there is a ceiling on that at the end of the day. No matter how many weapons you put around him, no matter how good you can create an offense around him, at some point you're going to go up against a team. We saw it last year in the Grant. I know that last year was a unique, like, scenario with the weather and everything else, but the other team had to play in it too. That's what it comes down to. You guys were missing guys on defense, which didn't help your defense, obviously.
Look,
very well. Too.
Time out though. Yeah. I hear what you're saying about the weather thing, but let's talk about the fact that they choked the end of the season. They should have been playing a game at home.
Right. And that's a whole other thing. But there's two main.
You had to beat the Tennessee Titans. You had to beat Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. Like, come on.
Crazy Will Levis, admittedly. Like, psycho, out of his mind, doesn't care Will Levis. There's a difference. No, I'm just kidding.
And I think the problem is we've seen playmaker Tua, but I think the issue is what we've seen is the fact that he can't do that if he wants to stay healthy.
Not only that, I just don't. Again, I don't think he has the arm talent to make some of those, like, off-platform, under pressure type of plays, and it's just hard for him to do it. It's not like it's just a physical thing. I can't blame a guy who can't physically do stuff sometimes. Like,
he doesn't have the arm talent, but I do think he does have enough leg talent that he
can move a little. He definitely can move well enough.
I'm saying that he could do some. If he had a different build, he could low key be Josh Allen. Like, he could be the guy to run through the tackles, because we saw him doing that.
He has tried. It just doesn't work.
But that's what gets him hurt.
Exactly.
And
you don't want him
that's where, like, unfortunately, he had to sacrifice that part of his game, any part of him being that physical and wanting to get those extra yards.
Just
this past season, he stayed healthy. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. But the things that have to go into him to do that, like, he's lost some weight this offseason. I'm terrified. I am terrified.
A little bit. We'll talk. His new look is something else too. But anyway,
no, his new look is normal for somebody who has braids.
I'm talking about more the. I wish he kept the beard. That's my thing. Is I didn't love the clean shave, and I don't care. But ultimately, the two biggest problems with Tua, like I said, for me, is that aspect of things. And again, some guys just aren't going to be that type of quarterback. Like, asking him to be that guy when he is able to get banged up as easily as he was in previous seasons just isn't smart. Like, I'm not telling him to all of a sudden go out there and be Josh Allen again. Like, don't do that. But ultimately the other issue with him is that when you play the way he does, and you were talking about like play calls and like not really reading the field all the time, it's not. I don't think it's that he can't read defenses or anything like that. That's not what I think it is. Just that there is so much predetermined stuff. Yeah, there's so much predetermined stuff.
Yeah.
And if you watch, like, I watched someone break down all of his interceptions from last year. And the thing with Tua is he's going to throw a couple of those every couple of weeks where it's like, he didn't read that shit because it's so stupid looking that it was definitely just a predetermined throw. And the thing is, I can't really argue with it because it works most of the time. And you get games where you score 70 freaking points against the Broncos. And then other games where you throw the ball to Chase Claypool and it's not close and you get intercepted and you lose again. It's just one of those things with him, right? You deal with it because of how productive he is outside of those times. But there is just going to be games where if a defense is smart and they can kind of fool him pre-snap and like the call isn't perfect, he's going to throw some balls that just look really weird. And it's, again, not necessarily that he didn't see the guy or anything else. It's just he was throwing there no matter what happened. And as fun as it is when it works, it is also very kind of deflating when it doesn't, right? And I think there's an element of that where it's like, do you want to pay that guy $50+ million a year? Or do you not? And for me, like, I would just have a lot of problems doing it. And I'm wondering if the Dolphins also have some reservations doing that. Even if, again, the thing that I really hate about the situation is that I think Tua he deserves to be a starting quarterback for a long time for this team or another one and get paid well to do so. But I also think the Dolphins, from their perspective, like, you guys need him to be more than what he's been, in my opinion, to kind of get over the hump. And also, your quarterback history after Marino has been so sad, like so depressing. I think who actually is good, it feels like it's hard to just not pay him and keep going, right?
I think part of the issue is everybody is terrified that this is just going to become Tannehill 2.0,
right? And I don't really think
it's not. It's not at all. He has been far more successful than Tannehill was.
Right. Like, I'm not very worried about that. But
and roster construction has been incredibly different too during that time. Sure. I mean, you don't have Joe Philbin at the helm. Like that's it's a lot different. But that's where I've said this whole offseason. If you're talking about a second-tier contract, absolutely. I am totally fine with that. And this is his first contract. He's 26. He's younger than I am. I would still be playing in the NFL right now if I was
younger than me. He's younger than me too.
So, like, you're talking about the first contract. So if you're talking about a second tier contract and you're looking at him like, hey, if you're not happy about the money, we make it a couple years. You show us that no, I'm the guy, and we have it until the end of Tyreek's contract, which is like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
and then. At that point, you look at him and you're like, all right, cool. You have these 3 years to show us that, yes, you're the guy. Second contract comes up, we will pay you. But if you can't do it, it's done. That's what I would be doing right now.
And again, I don't think he's going to take
there has to
deal.
Be. I understand, but there has to be some understanding from his side that he has not necessarily lived up to the expectations that were built. And like, that's where both of yes, should he get paid a lot of money? Absolutely. And that's where we're talking about, we're talking about fucking $40-50 million. That's still a freaking lot amount, like so much money. Like it's so much money that it's like insane that we're arguing that it should be more.
Here's the thing that really cracks me up with this, Zach, is I think quarterbacks like Tua that clearly are starting quarterbacks, if not plus starting quarterbacks in the system that they play in, right? They should be making like the Daniel Jones contract, like what Daniel Jones got, not because he's Daniel Jones level, but because Daniel Jones shouldn't have been getting paid 4 years on. But it was that should be kind of where like the true, like, he's a starting quarterback. There's no question of whether he's a starting quarterback. It's, does he provide the extra value or the ability to elevate your team, or is he just able to run the team as they are constructed? That should be the bar, in my opinion, if I'm looking at it from that perspective. The problem is the NFL and teams have shown us that doesn't work that way. Jared Goff just got paid $1 bajillion. And listen, Jared Goff has acquitted himself super well, right? He's really acquitted himself super well. But we all know at the end of the day, like, Jared Goff is still one of those quarterbacks that he's going to make the offense as good as it is, and probably not better than it is, right? Like, that's just what it is.
That's why they're waiting for Hendon Hooker time.
Right. Yeah. Talking about Virginia Tech. Ultimately, he got paid, what, 50, was it 58, was something like that, million per year? I'd have to look at it again. And again, like, good for Jared Goff, right? After what his situation was, going to the Super Bowl with the Rams and then getting cast off from them and everything that's happened, I'm happy for him. But Tua has every right to ask for Jared Goff money. He absolutely has every right. And from what we've seen with how
the problem in the NFL is that stupid people are promoted to positions like GM and make dumb decisions, like paying Daniel Jones that amount of money. That's where, like, of all the people, Jared Goff, I would look at that contract and be like, nah, bruh, you brought Detroit out of the mud. You deserve that.
I'm not saying that, like, he doesn't deserve it at all. I'm saying that if a quarterback like Jared Goff can get that much money,
but that's
Tua has every right to ask for that. Or
I'm going to turn around and look at Tua and say, "Where's your playoff win?" Because Jared Goff has playoff wins. So
and then you get into the conversation of quarterback wins, and then everyone gets mad and hates each other. But you get my point. Like, it's about the team success does matter when you're talking about this a little bit, because it's kind of my argument where, like, do I think that the Cowboys should not sign Dak Prescott after this year? Absolutely not. I think they should sign him because he's a good quarterback. But I also would wonder, like, is it going to change? Like, if they don't sign him, will their ultimate outcome of their franchise change? Because we've seen him with about as good of a roster as they can put together, and it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And I'm not even necessarily saying he has anything to do with that half the time. But at some point, are you spending money to spend money? Like, are you digging yourself a hole just to dig yourself a hole? The Dolphins are in a different situation because they are just now kind of reaching that apex of, like, what can they be, right? We've seen Cowboys team kind of do this weird thing where they're always good in the regular season and then shit hits the fan in the playoffs. Like, we've seen that happen consistently. Now, I'd love to see them try this without McCarthy. That's my thing. However, that doesn't seem likely. I think we're gonna reach a point where, like, either everybody's gone or everybody's back. Like, if they don't have success this year, they're all gone. If they have success, they're all back. Like, that's kind of what
you brought up the Cowboys because I think that's the team that gets affected the most by the Waddle contract. Because and that's where I bring up the $76 million guaranteed.
So he's gonna be like, give me like $5 million more a year than that, and also guarantee all of it, basically.
Absolutely, and he deserves it all. This is a conversation where you're talking about the opposite of a player who can walk into the meeting room and be like, "Hey, what can you say to me that I haven't done?" Like,
also, who's receiver 2 right now?
Exactly. So, like, that's why as crazy as it is that Miami and Tua have not come to an agreement, when that's at the beginning of the offseason, that was the entire thing. That, I will be honest, I was not expecting a Jalen Waddle extension this offseason.
Especially prior to Tua's extension. Like,
so they knocked that out. But then you're sitting here and looking at the rest of the receiver market, where, like, the Tua thing is going to be difficult, but, like, you have the justification there. You have a little bit of a weird negotiating thing with Jalen Waddle, because if he doesn't get signed before these wide receivers who also are doing very well, you don't have the same thing where you can look at him and be like, oh, hey, you haven't been doing what you need to do, because he has. he's had some drops and stuff here and there, but we've talked about it.
Very, very good. He's been
very productive. So now the Dolphins front office is sitting there like, yo, we've got to get this done before Jefferson signs a deal, before CeeDee Lamb signs a deal, before, I don't know, was Nico and him like the same time?
Roughly. Nico, I think just before him, if I remember.
Just before, but like I guarantee you that wasn't even a factor.
Devontae before them too. Devontae got his deal first too, but he got a little bit less than
Devontae Adams?
Smith.
Oh, Smith. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So like you're seeing all these wide receivers pop off, and now all of a sudden Miami's like, oh crap, well, maybe we should take care of this first. Yeah, and now
I think that is what happened. Yeah,
and now you're sitting here as Dallas, and you're like, oh crap.
I think now is a race to see whether Jefferson signs first or if Lamb signs first. Because
if Jefferson signs first, man, we talked about what the decision was going to be between Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb. They might only be able to sign one, and that's going to be insane.
That's another reason why I say, like, with Dak is like, it's not that I'd advocate not to sign him because he's a good enough quarterback where letting him go would be just not smart, right? Let's just be honest about that. If you're trying to compete as a team. Now, if you want to tank, sure, then don't sign him.
Is he on contract for this season?
Yeah, he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. Like he is, and they can't tag him either. They can't tag him.
Yo.
You know what I'm saying? Like they can't tag him.
What if the Dolphins just turn around? They're like, you know what? Fuck it. Bring Dak in.
It would be he would be his Stafford, right? It would be McDaniel Stafford. So that'd be funny.
It would be like,
I'm not expecting that, but it'd be very funny. But ultimately, that's what I'm saying. Like with the quarterback contracts, like if you're Dallas, right? If you can't have all three of them, right? If you let's say you sign Dak and you sign Parsons, you don't sign Lamb. The offense is not going to be nearly as good, no matter how good Dak is or isn't. He has shown that if he doesn't have that guy he can trust and throw the football to, he is not the same quarterback. Guess what? Most guys aren't the same quarterback. There's like three guys who probably would be still a similar quarterback. And so it's not really an indictment on Dak. It's just the truth of the matter, right? Like that's just what it is. Same thing.
And one of those is a second-year quarterback because he just found out how to throw he just got his receivers.
Right. So that's my point, right? Like that's kind of what it is. And then if you look at like losing, let's say you just sign CeeDee Lamb and Parsons, right? Okay, you have your pillar players still, but now you have to figure out, okay, who the hell is the quarterback going to be for this team, right? It's probably not Trey Lance, even though it'd be fun. Is it going to be a draft pick? Is it going to be whatever? Like, it just creates a lot of, no matter what you do, you have big questions about the long-term health of the team, right?
And just like Pittsburgh and other teams, you're stuck in this. Well, no, but like it's like the Falcons decision where we said, had they not paid Kirk Cousins, their pick this year makes absolutely sense. Because
sure.
Your team is not bad enough to be in the top of the draft again to get the level of quarterback that you need to be on your team. So what are you going to do if like for Dallas, what are you going to do if you can't pay Dak? What assets do you have?
What's the solution to that problem? That's why I still think he ultimately will end up.
I mean, and I hate to keep bringing you guys up, but like it's what's going on in Pittsburgh right now.
We have to keep filling in a quarterback because we don't
because you don't have the ability to move up or get the opportunity to get somebody high enough to really make an effect. But it's not that you guys aren't doing the rest of your team is fantastic
for the most part. Yeah. Like
for the most part. Yeah. So
it's just it's tough when you're
there's a ton of teams stuck there right now that are just kind of stuck in this limbo of our team is too good that we can't get to the bottom of because like, that's the one thing about the Bears is had they not made the move that they made last year with the trade, they would not have Caleb Williams. Yeah. They were not the worst team in the league. It was so different. They were not the worst team in the league. They got lucky that they traded with the team that was going to be the worst in the league. So like, it's just these weird things that pop up where you're like, the way to build a team is really strange. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to get lucky that the cards all align and you're able to build it. Because like you look at a team like Chicago right now, they're ready to go. Like they're ready to like, if Caleb is good and ready to go on day one, they're ready to start firing and taking a shot at the NFC North. So it just gets weird for some of these teams like Dallas, who's like, what do we do? We're stuck in this predicament where
even a team like Dallas, where like the reason why they are where they are is because they were able to get Dak Prescott in the freaking fourth round.
Yeah.
Like they already like Tony Romo was supposed to be the quarterback that year, and he got banged up again, and he had to retire with his back. And they had a 4th-round rookie who came in and literally was great immediately. Like if that didn't happen, where are they at right now? Because they were still a good team. They probably were going to be a top 15-ish pick no matter what, like or no higher than that regardless. Who knows what their outlook is right now, right? Like that's just what it comes down to. Like you have to have some luck involved in this, and that's why like moving on from somebody like Prescott, as much as like from a logical standpoint, like if you have a quarterback that consistently plays in that like top 10-ish level every year, it's really hard to not pay that guy every time he wants to play for you. But if you aren't going to get any farther than you've been, if you can, like at this point, how much better can the Cowboys roster really get with this current core? Like, especially if you have to now pay all of them, like top of the line money. I don't know. It's truly like difficult to say. Right. And then, so that's what it comes down to. Like, so if we're talking about like the contracts and things like that, just be aware. Like, I'm not saying that Dak shouldn't get a contract from the Cowboys. I'm saying I wonder if they're going to do it and whether it makes sense long term for them, based on how they've been success-wise with him there. Like, regardless of how much his fault is and what isn't his fault, it just is still true that they have not been able to make it past a certain point in the playoffs. And I do think it's not all him at all. I really don't. But if it's not all him, they have to figure out how to make it work with him, and they haven't been able to do that to the level that their expectations have, right? Obviously, plenty of teams would love to have the amount of success the Cowboys have had over the past 4 or 5 years, but it still hasn't reached what they have expectation-wise being the Cowboys, right? Like if you were the Jaguars, you'd love to have the success the Cowboys had the past 4 or 5 years, but you're not on the same expectation level as them, right? And I think that's also where you come back with the Dolphins, where now that they've shown their potential, especially their offensive potential, right? There's an expectation there that they're going to compete for this division, that they're going to win playoff games, that they're going to compete for a Super Bowl. Like that's the expectation now, right? It has to be. Can they do that paying Tua and these receivers and the edge defenders and the corner now with Ramsey? Like, can they do that? Or is it going to be too much? Like, is that combination of players enough to get by? Similarly to how, like, with the Rams, where they had a bunch of premium players in that Super Bowl run, and they have filled in with enough talent around those guys to be a viable Super Bowl contender, right? Like, that's the direction it kind of feels like the Dolphins are going, where, like, we have our stars, we have our core pieces. Now it's just, can we get enough from everyone else? Like, that's what it seems like is the case, yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised. And I think another thing you have to think about with this is Tua is an unrestricted free agent after this year. Now, they could franchise tag him, and I'm sure if they don't get a deal done before the end of the year, they will do that, right? Just to have that leverage. Is it really, if you're the Dolphins, is it really that dangerous to not let him play this year out, knowing you can franchise tag him and knowing that the quarterback contracts are already so big that how much bigger are they going to get between now and then? Like, is it really going to matter that much? That's why I'm kind of thinking it won't happen until after the season.
But that's where I go back to what I said, like the week after we were talking about free agency. If that's what was going to happen all along, you could have used this money on something else and brought Andrew Van Ginkel back or like something else. And it's just disappointing when that was what everybody was expecting to happen this offseason, and now it's just getting pushed off and it's just going to be a problem for another day. And that's it's just a rehash of the freaking draft all over again. Just do it already. Just get it done and over with. Either don't sign him or sign him. Just do it. Either draft him or don't draft him.
Yeah, I know a lot of fans really want to know like just what the direction is with him. And I get it. And I think though, like you're right though, if they do wait till after the season and to like into his free agency to actually do something, it is just very strange. Like it's just a weird way to because like they've done things. But
am I saying I wanted Wilkins? No, I didn't want Wilkins for that contract.
No, it was a lot. As good as
it would have been great. Did I want Robert Hunt? No, I did not want Robert Hunt. That was
not
too
expensive. $100 million.
I didn't want that. But again, it's the one name I keep going back to. Andrew Van Ginkel was not expensive. It was not expensive.
I mean, they also like clearly they wanted to just upgrade the ceiling of that third edge spot with Robinson. And I get that.
But like, he was going nuts this season, though. He was really developing and blossoming given the opportunity.
Yeah. It's tough.
But it'll just be interesting to see. One guy that we haven't really talked about at all that is also affected by this is Brandon Ayuk.
Yes, who I
which
wish was a Steeler.
Which is interesting because it just feels like the overall opinion of Deebo Samuel just keeps going lower and lower and lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
Because like it really feels like people are talking about Ayuk as the wide receiver one on this offense now. When like for a while,
he is, for sure. Like there's no doubt about that to me. Like I don't think, and I think it's been that way for a while. It's because you have to remember, like similarly in the way that like I don't. This is a whole different level. Let me clear this up. But like I don't think Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in the NFL. I think personally Justin Jefferson is. I think Tyreek Hill might be the most uniquely like talented playmaker in the NFL. And I think there's you can look at it multiple different ways. But
I think he's the most athletic.
Well, yeah, but you get my point. Like
being,
a lot of people might pick Tyreek Hill over Justin Jefferson right this minute because of how insanely explosive Tyreek Hill is. But if you're asking me to compare their wide receiver skill sets, Justin Jefferson is better wide receiver. I think that at times, especially until this past year, more so than ever, Samuel's skill set was more important to the offense than Ayuk's was, but Ayuk has been the better actual receiver for pretty much the entire time that they've been playing together. And that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Ayuk is the actual receiver one in the sense of he is a prototypical wide receiver one. Yeah. Samuel's been maybe their most important playmaker prior to McCaffrey being there, obviously. Like McCaffrey's kind of
and that's something that has greatly changed his overall role.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you had to pick one long term, obviously it's Ayuk to me. But also like they're kind of in a similar boat where like how much money can you pay the playmakers? And I understand like Purdy doesn't need a contract right now, right? He will after this year if you want to keep him long term. But we all know that offense runs because of the play calling and because of the talent around him. Not saying that he's bad. I'm not willing to say that he's bad at this point, but he's not the guy that makes this team go. Like we know that the quarterback in a system like this, unless the quarterback is a truly like elite player, he's never going to be the reason why the offense goes. It's going to be the play calling and the receivers and the tight end. Like that's what it's going to be in this type of offense, right? It's built that way. It's not even like an indictment on the quarterbacks to play this. Like you literally aren't the guy because you aren't supposed to be the guy in these offenses, right? Like they have that same question too. Like, are we going to pay all the players around him and then just hope that he can get a Super Bowl here in the next 2 years and then figure out if we want to pay Purdy long term? Like, is that what the plan is? It's so many of these teams that have all these collection of playmakers that they now have to pay. They have to look at themselves and go, okay, can we do this while also having a quarterback in place that can make it go? It's very tough for some of these teams. And other teams, like the Niners, I'll be honest with you, if they let Purdy walk, I won't care one bit because I'm very confident that whoever comes in next will be at least like 90% as effective as him. That's just what it comes down to.
Do you know who's backing him up right now?
Oh, I know. Of course I do. The Pastronaut.
Yeah.
Of course it. Listen, if Dobbs got in the game, it'd be very funny. That's all I'll say. Like he would have like 3 weeks of like it'd be like the Vikings stint where he looks like a freaking all-pro for like 3 games, and then he would just become normal.
And then we could see Brandon Allen or Tanner Mordecai.
Oh, Tanner Mordecai, Jesus Christ! No, yeah. I mean that even he might be too
somehow,
bad.
Look, all I'm saying is I've had the debate with Tony before, but if somehow Tanner Mordecai ends up under center for the San Francisco 49ers, we have to talk about quarterback mismanagement for God's sake.
The sad part is he'd have like at least like 3 drives of like, oh man, maybe there's something.
Oh, this could work.
And then it'll be like, oh, never mind, he can't play.
Yeah,
it'd be kind of like the Nick Mullins thing, but worse than that because like Mullins at least stuck around as a backup for a long time.
Yeah, he has.
I don't know. That would be stretching even Shanahan's ability to make a quarterback play like sort of well would be pushed by that, I think. But yeah,
it's such a wild roster though. Like the whole thing is just packed full.
Yeah, they're very good. Yeah, I think we know that. We saw it last year.
I think we have Uter Gross Matos in the offseason.
The toast. That's funny.
Oh,
shout out Penn State.
Yeah, I know about it. He was I'm pretty sure he's local to my my area.
Oh yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, he was a Virginia to Penn State person.
Ah, gotcha. But
almost positive. So what do we think that means for Ayuk's contract though?
I think that he's in line to be kind of like, I think if I had to rank the total amount of money for the next like 3 wide receiver contracts we're expecting, which is Ayuk, Jefferson, and Lamb. He'll come in a couple million below those two, if I had to guess.
Okay.
I think it's closer to like what Waddle just got in terms of like the per year averages, just maybe longer. I feel like they kind of want to lock him up for long. If they're the ones who sign him ultimately, right? I think they want to lock him up long term, just to have like somebody that they can rely on for multiple years. But I would expect it somewhere around that range. I think the guaranteed money just went up though in terms of what he's going to ask for based on Waddle.
Exactly.
So that's the percentage of it that's guaranteed might be more than people thought, but we'll see. So
yeah, Matos went to my rival high school, Chancellor High School.
Huh. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, but no, yeah, that should be everything we want to talk about today. Hopefully Tony will be able to join us next time here. We'll try to make sure he can be on. But that'll do it for us this week, guys. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully we get some clarity on the Tua thing at some point, just for the sake of all the fans, so they could stop freaking out.
And that's where, like, again, if it's not going to happen this offseason, they both just need to be like, all right, it's time to focus on the season.
At some point, I mean, there's gonna be a report in like August of like contract negotiations have been shelved until the offseason. If it doesn't.
Oh yeah, and we'll get some sort of number that came out, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me! He didn't take that."
Right. Oh, for sure. It's how it always works. Like he was offered 4 years, $200 million, $120 million guaranteed.
I will cry. 40 million, 50 million a year. Are you kidding me? Like that's perfect. Like that seems like a great total for him.
In this quarterback market, that would be fine. I think that'd be fine.
It's just stupid people were allowed to pay people like Daniel Jones, and that's why we're messed up.
Yeah. Trust me, I know. But no, that'll do it for this week, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk about hopefully some other news that happens between now and then next week.